And Mark, let's move on into a team that, well, we move on from one team that's got a lot of personalities to a team that got rid of a big personality this offseason, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Before we get into everything, though, make sure to check us out on Apple Podcasts. And if you could please give us that 5-star rating, it really helps out the podcast, gets us into the ears of more people. So if you could do that, it would mean the world to us. But Mark, let's start out the Steelers preview with how they did last year. And looking at the rankings, offensive yards per game, they were 4th. They averaged 403 or thereabouts yards per game. They were also a top 10 offense in scoring, averaging about 26 points per game. They were 6th overall in the league. Defensively, weren't bad with yards per game. They gave up 327 yards, which was good for top 6. But points per game, they gave up 22.5. They're about a middle of the pack defense. When in terms of giving up points, they were 16th in the league last year. The biggest offseason move was actually a departure. AB is no longer on this team. He is with the Oakland Raiders. They signed Mark Barron, linebacker. They re-signed Ramon Foster. They bring on Dante Moncrief to a 2-year deal. They re-signed Eli Rogers and have brought in Steven Nelson, cornerback, as well, to a 3-year deal. The thing I want to ask you first with the Steelers is, what should we expect from the AB less, like the post-AB era in Pittsburgh, with Juju being the main guy in that receiving core?
Well, I don't think we can expect another 5,000-yard season out of Big Ben. I think that those numbers are going to go down. James Conner was a really great running back. We'll see if he kind of can repeat it in a year or two. I just feel like this team, unless James Washington really steps up and becomes amazing, they're going to see a step back in production. And you already look at last year and go back to that, and when it came to playing playoff teams, they didn't do that great. They squeaked by New England, and they split with Baltimore. So, like, they lost more games against these playoff teams than they won. And I just look at that and I say, that to me is a team that they won the games they should have won, but they didn't win the games that they could have won that would have pushed them over. And I don't necessarily know that much has changed this year. I mean, Devin Bush is going to be a great addition to that defense. And, Johnson out of Toledo, new wide receiver, I don't necessarily know that that's going to be the biggest, life changer for them offensively. So I definitely see that offense taking a step back. I get a little worried about some of these things, and I don't want to read too much into quotes, but I think it's interesting that Mike Tomlin goes ahead and says that he's not really worried about team chemistry right now. It's like, but why not? Your team had one of the worst chemistry locker rooms in the entire league last year.
But AB is gone.
And yeah, but there's still a big issue there. Just getting rid of one player doesn't make everybody go, great, everything's great now. You still have issues, and there's a lot of people in that locker room, especially people who've left, who pointed and said, the problem's not AB. The problem's not the other AB, LB, Le'Veon Bell either. The problem's Big Ben. He's the issue. And you look at this too, another quote here that, not to read too much into quotes, but Big Ben being questioned about, that the fact that the Steelers are an underdog, and his response is, we're still the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, that's a team that missed the playoffs last year. That's a team that the year before that couldn't score a touchdown in a playoff game. Like, it's a team that hasn't had that much success in recent years. So you can't still stand behind that record and just be like, well, yeah, we're the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers haven't been good in a while. They've just kind of been okay and not good enough. I just feel like this team, yeah, they got rid of some guys. They shipped some things off. This team, to me, kind of seems like a team that needs a shakeup a little bit.
With me, the whole thing was Antonio Brown the only guy responsible for that team chemistry being as poor as it was? No. Big Ben was also a part of it. And the one thing, take it as you may, or leave it as you may, Big Ben not doing that radio show that he used to do in past years, that could be seen as a good thing moving forward. Like, hey, that wasn't doing me any good. It wasn't doing the team any good to basically have me say something, they use it as a sound bite, and then boom, it could be used against me and the team
Also,
in
just
the locker room.
Don't be a dick.
Well, yeah, I don't
Could
think
be a good thing too.
I don't think that's possible though, so we're gonna ignore that.
You look at the thing too, and Big Ben would constantly be like, "I don't know, I texted him," and the player goes, "I don't have anything from you, buddy." To me, I don't know. There's an obvious issue of Big Ben is the issue, and
but they're
without
not
a doubt,
they're not going to get rid of.
they're
Big
not.
Ben.
But without a doubt, Antonio Brown was a bit of an issue as well. But they didn't get rid of it. They just kind of empowered the issue there by saying, like, "You're right, Big Ben. It's all about you." And then you got Tomlin out there who's just like, "Man, I don't care about chemistry. I just want us to play well." And it's just, to me, this is a team that they got complacent. They didn't really want to deal with any of the things they needed to deal with, and they let things fester. And Big Ben is just, I'll go ahead and say, I think Big Ben is the locker room cancer here. And it's kind of like when people were criticizing that Packers article saying, if you weren't one of Aaron Rodgers' guys, you were like completely ostracized, and that was an issue. That's exactly how it is with Big Ben. If you're not one of Big Ben's guys, that's an issue for you on this team.
Well, and I mean, with that may be true, but I think that because AB is gone, because Le'Veon Bell is gone, how many of the guys on the team are not now Big Ben guys? I don't think Juju's going to start anything.
They're scared not to be, so they have to be.
Yeah, but like I look at that in terms of success for the Steelers, and it might turn into success for the Steelers.
But they have less production offensively. Their offense isn't going to be as good.
That is where it comes into the question, where I don't think the problem for the Steelers this year will be their chemistry. I think the chemistry will be fine. Now there's even the stories of like Big Ben inviting the wide receivers over to his house for the barbecue, and kind of building up team chemistry. The thing that I look at is you lost Antonio Brown. You lost a 1,000-yard receiver last year. Even if Juju is anywhere near where he was last year, where's that production going to go? Where's the 1,200 yards, almost 1,300 that AB had going to go, if anywhere? And where are the 15 touchdowns that AB had? Where are they going to go? Because the great thing about the Steelers last year was you couldn't double cover both Juju and AB. Now it's more of a situation of like, well, hey, just double cover Juju and let the other wide receivers beat us, or let David, like, you got to just guard for James Conner and Juju. Like, Washington, I'm not going to say super high, but like, I liked him coming out of Oklahoma State. What are we going to see from him this season? Because now they have a big hole on that wide receiver front with Antonio Brown not being here anymore. And I look at this team and I think the big thing of why I'm kind of thinking they're going to miss the playoffs again, only because you lose Antonio Brown. Your defense didn't really get a hell of a lot better. I mean, I know that I mentioned how they made some key signings on the defensive side, one of them being Steven Nelson, coming over from the Chiefs. But, I mean, defensively in the draft, like, is Devin Bush going to be the missing piece to build this defense up? I mean, it's a rookie player that I think helps this team, but I think doesn't make it like a world changer type of a thing. And that is what I wonder when it comes to it, is you looked at this team where yards per game, they were a good defense. But can they stop teams from scoring? And yes, I know technically they scored more than their average gave up, but to be one of those teams, like, you're going to be, I think them are going to be in closer games, and because you don't have Antonio Brown, are you going to fall out of the top 10 in scoring on offense because you don't have that red zone target in Brown.
And your number one target is double covered, and you don't have a second number one target.
Depends. Does he have his X Factor on? Because that's the only way you can knock him out of his X Factor,
Right.
Mark.
It's just interesting to me with the Steelers, and they have a difficult. It's not incredibly difficult, but they have a difficult enough schedule, to where that makes you kind of nervous for them. And I think that this should probably be a 9-7 team. The question mark is 9-7 going to be good enough to get into the playoffs? A lot of times 9-7 needs a little bit of help from somebody else. So it's going to be very interesting from that standpoint as well. And I get a little bit concerned because Big Ben's shown that he likes to point fingers. If this offense goes down in production, I doubt he's going to take the blame himself.
I'm going to ask you this. Write the headline for me. If this team is 2-4 or 3-3 heading into the Week 7 bye, what's the headline say for the Steelers? Because I could see them losing to Baltimore, LA, and New England, maybe Seattle, with wins over San Francisco and Cincinnati before the bye. So if they're 2-3 wins before their bye, Week 7, what's the headline?
I'm even going to make this a Ricky Widmer type of headline. I'm going to use a colon in it.
Nice.
Big Ben, colon, time to hang it up.
After signing that extension.
Right? Well, time to retire. Extensions don't mean anything when it comes to retirement. The guy's talked about retirement for about 3 years now.
If they're 2-4, 3-3, that's the story we're looking at. That Big Ben's washed up.
That he's done. It's time to move on.
Just hang it up, move on.
Yeah, I mean, you just got yourself a nice young quarterback last year who's ready to come in as soon as Mr. Roethlisberger is no longer able to do it. Let the kid get a chance.
Because, it's interesting. I look at the schedule, too, where it's like, if going into the bye, I'm going to use the worst case. They're 2-4 or less.
And with that being said, I don't think Big Ben's getting benched.
I don't think it's time to hit the panic button then. Because I look at the rest of their schedule, Miami's a winnable game. Well, I know Josh Rosen's there, and I really want him to play well, but I think it's a winnable game. Colts are a wild card. Rams I could see as a loss. The Bengals, I'm going to say that Pittsburgh sweeps the Bengals this year. So I'm going to put down 2 for sure wins. Cardinals,
but one of those wins was in the 2-4.
Yeah, no,
so only one win.
I'm talking the Dolphins. Yeah. So Dolphins and Bengals are the 2. Post bye. So 2 post the bye. Cardinals would be 3, Buffalo would be 4. Maybe New York, so you're a 7-win team for sure.
Yeah.
And it's like, can you win the other games? Can you split then with the Ravens? What are you going to do against Cleveland? Because usually you win 2, sometimes you split. This could be a year where it's like, are you going to split or lose them both? And then also, what are you going to do against the Rams and the Colts? Like, those are the games where it's like, all right, I've given you 7. You got to try to get 3 out of the rest. And if I'm pulling anything, like if you lose to Baltimore at home, I don't think you're going to win on the road, because that last game could be for the division with them and the Browns. Maybe one against the Browns, but then other than that, it's like, okay, that means I have to win against the Rams and the Colts, and that's probably why the Steelers missed the playoffs, because of a poor start of the season with how tough those first 6 games could be.
Yeah, like I said, I think this team could easily be 9-7, and then it kind of depends on what else is going around, what help they get. And it's interesting because, Big Ben is 37 right now. He's already talked about retirement multiple times. The only thing that's keeping him, I honestly feel the only thing that's keeping him from retiring is the fact that they drafted a quarterback. If the Steelers didn't draft a quarterback, I think Big Ben would be like, all right, whatever. When I'm done, I'm done. But the fact that there is somebody there to compete, there is somebody there to take his job, that's like his worst nightmare. He doesn't want someone to come and take his job. So that's the only thing that's making him stay. He's like, look, guys, I'm still good to go. He's going to kind of force the Steelers' hand a little bit on that one.
I'm going to ask you this. When it comes to Mike Tomlin, and Steeler fans are going to get mad that I kind of even propose this question. Let's say either 2 situations. Either they miss the playoffs let's say they're 9-7 again, miss the playoffs, or even if they make the playoffs but lose in the wild card game, do you see the question being asked about Mike Tomlin's future and actually being switched over? Would two non-playoff years be enough for the Steelers to go, well, let's look at this. Tom, you haven't been to a Super Bowl since we lost to the Packers in 2010. Since then, you've only won, 3 playoff games and been to the playoffs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times? Maybe it's time we look somewhere else.
I don't think they're going to look somewhere else. Does the question get raised if they completely miss the playoffs? Sure. If they make the playoffs, nothing gets asked at all. I don't expect him to go anywhere for next year, though.
I mean, that's something I just throw out there. Maybe it's another, because also in 2012, 2013, I look into it, they did go 8-8 in both of those years, and he was fine. And then they made the playoffs the next year. With the Steeler team, they are the biggest kind of question mark in this division to me, because you've got what looks like a good young team ahead of you that won the division. You've now got a superpowered team behind you in the Browns that are adding that superpower to try to surpass you as the second in the division, and you're losing a really good wide receiver. And that's where the question comes in, is like, are you going to have enough to compete with the Ravens, to compete with the Browns over this season and still hang on to maybe first or second in the AFC North? Or could this be a year where the Steelers finish third in the division for the first time since 2012?
Yeah, it's possible, but I'm not really high on the Ravens, so we'll see what happens.
So, because you've always said that it's going to be, this division is between the Ravens and the Browns, and you're leaning towards the Browns to win the division? Or you're leaning towards the Steelers to win the division?
No, I'm not leaning towards the Steelers. I'm leaning towards the Browns. To me, the last time I talked about it, I think that's what I said, but to me now the Browns, they've got it.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Steeler fans, let us know what you guys think down below. What are you excited for this year? What are you not excited for this year? Are we harping too much on this team chemistry and giving Big Ben a bad rap? Let us know what you guys think down below.